Well, I got done playing Beyond Two Souls, and um, and it's the newest game from developer Quantic Dream. But I've actually heard a lot of polarized opinions about this. I mean, it's kind of like the new Star Trek, or the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie, in that there are some people who are basically praising it as this as this vastly interactive experience. I mean, it's so rewarding. I've never walked out of a game happier. Blah 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 blah. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, there are some people that are saying, "Oh, this doesn't really feel like a game. It's not. I mean, you basically have nothing to do. It's. I mean, you are guided along a very narrow path. It's insanely linear and uninvolving. So so hearing reviews that are that split, naturally I was kind of curious to see where this game would go. Um, but before I start, I feel like I have to address my opinion of Quantic Dream's previous game, Heavy Rain, which I liked. Heavy Rain was basically it was kind of that same kind of it's somewhat in the same vein of Beyond Two Souls in that they try to make it a very cinematic experience. If you can hear if you can hear noises coming from upstairs, it's my brother and his friend. He's I mean they feel the need to yell when they play Pokemon games, so whatever. Um, but the thing with Heavy Rain is that um, I liked the bleak atmosphere. I liked the fact that it was basically on you, the player, to find the game's origami killer. Um, I mean, you didn't really have an option of what level came next, but you had an option of how you would progress through the level. So so I did like Heavy Rain. I mean, it had problems. Don't get me wrong, but overall, I thought it was a very interesting game. I didn't feel like I got robbed. Or I didn't feel like I wasted my time when I had finished the game, um, or or when I had unlocked one of the many endings of the game. Um, so so I didn't really go into Beyond Two Souls with any kind of preconceived opinion. I mean, I wanted to basically approach this thing with a fresh mind, and I really did not want to have my opinion be colored by other people's opinions. Um, which in hindsight means it was probably a mistake to look at all those reviews. But in my defense, I didn't actually read in depth. I just kind of skimmed and got the general opinion, whatever. Um, but the premise of this game is it's basically all. I mean, it's basically they were basically marketing this as this big cinematic gaming experience. It supposedly blurs the line between game and movie. It's unlike anything you've ever played. The character decides every aspect of the story. Um, I mean, the player can have. I mean, the player can influence and affect the environment in ways that you've never been able to before. Um, and it's supposedly this big prophesized game changer um, for the industry. And the game revolves around a woman named Jodie Holmes. It encompasses about 15 years of her life from when she's this little kid to when she's a young adult. Um, and she was born with this gift slash curse of basically having this ethereal, ghostly entity following her around. I mean, this entity cannot leave her. It is permanently tethered to her by some neural psychological connection. I mean, she cannot make this thing go away, and yeah, she's basically stuck with this entity. And for a long stretch of it, you have no idea what it is, and she simply names it Aiden. And Aiden, aside from speaking to Jody, can influence and actually cause physical altercations to the environment. I mean, he can make things move. He can break stuff. Allow. He can take over people. He can basically possess them. So it's there are really a lot of possibilities here for innovation and variety. I mean you really had the groundwork here for this really excellent, involving game. I mean, this could have been a uniquely engrossing experience that basically did what the developers were telling us it was going to do, which was basically change the world of gaming. It's going to earn a new respect for the industry. It basically plays like a game but feels like a movie. And how do I go about saying this? I was extremely disappointed with this game. I mean, Beyond Two Souls, I don't know about anyone else, but I really hated this game. I hated this. I hated this all the way through. I could not believe how little enjoyment I got out of this. Which, in hindsight, is it's probably a good thing that I only rented it for $2 at Redbox. So, I'm really thankful I did not spend $60 on this, because it is not worth nearly that price. This is a severe and shocking disappointment, and it actually borders on false advertising. Okay, so let me talk about the biggest problem I have with this game. You as the player are basically superfluous to the plot. I mean, there is nothing you can do to really have any meaningful effect on how the story plays out. This story unfolds exactly as the writer wants it to. There is nothing you can do to change that. And no matter how well or how poorly you match the buttons that are prompted on screen, the story always proceeds as it was intended to. It is amazing to me how uninvesting this game is. I can't believe it. I can't believe how bored I was during this. There are minor deviations here and there that try to mix things up a little. For example, when you're running away from the cops toward the beginning of the game, you're on this train, and you're basically running away from the security guards, and you go into the forest and you run away from some cops. Well, if you play extremely poorly, then the cops might knock you out and arrest you. But the thing is, once that happens, the game forces you back onto the path. The game forces you to play as Aiden to rescue Jody and basically destroy anything in the way of opposition. The game will not let you deviate far from its chosen path. I mean, you will always arrive at the same point, as no matter what you do. I mean, there. I'm just gonna give the first example that comes to my mind. There's a there's that police chase I was talking about a second ago. Um, like I said, if you play poorly, then 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 you get arrested 2 or 3 times, all of which the game forces you to play as Aiden to work past. You play as Aiden, you destroy the police cars, and you severely injure and possibly kill some of the police officers. So then Ellen Page looks at the chief of police and basically says, "Leave me alone, or next time I will kill everyone." So that's what happens if you play poorly. But if you play well, if you match nearly all of the on-screen prompts, if you run where the game tells you to run, if you do everything right, then it's then again Jody picks up the chief of police by his collar and basically says, or not the chief of police, the sergeant or whatever. She picks him up by his collar and she's like, "Now leave me alone, or next time I'll kill everyone." There is no variation aside from where that line of dialogue happens. I mean, the angle, the camera angle is the same, the delivery is the same, the circumstance is nearly the same. The only difference is just how you go about trashing the cops' cars and basically eliminating the cops. There was no reason to even, there was almost no reason to pick up the controller aside from short little segments where the game gives you this very limited space to roam around in. But even then, you don't actually get to roam around. The game always, or almost always, I can only think of one exception, and that's when you're in the Navajo section where you're wandering around the desert. But aside from that, the game always has this very narrow path laid out for you in these sections, and you cannot deviate from this. You cannot explore any of the facilities that the game drops you off in. You always have to go wherever the game tells you to. You don't have any other options. You don't have any other incentive to go exploring. There are a few little, I don't even know what they are. There are a few of these little blue or white auras that you can collect for bonuses like a concept art, but that's hardly worthwhile content to go searching around for, especially in a game that does not give you any. It gives you no motivation to go exploring. There is no way to do what you want in this game. None. There are no meaningful choices. There's no deviating from the set path. I don't even know what else to say. The combat sections work in the exact same manner. I mean, looking at what Jody is able to do because she has CIA combat training. Roll with it. Looking at what she's able to do, basically beat up people 3 times her size. It looks like fun, but the thing is, every move is choreographed for you. Every move is predetermined. All you have to do is push the right analog stick in the general direction that Jody is moving, and you will automatically win every single fight. In fact, if you don't do that, then again, the game basically finds some ludicrous way for you to still continue the story and basically win. There is no stopping you from getting to the ending of this game. The programmers want you to get to the end of this game. They want you to trek through this story, and there is nothing you can do to change that. there's nothing here in the way of making your own choices. There and the story itself is not okay. Here's what's ironic. The gameplay is shockingly linear to the point where it's just about as linear, if not more so, than the Final Fantasy 13 games, where you're just running along a hallway, where you're just running along a set path without any deviation whatsoever. It's like that during the gameplay, but the thing that I found really ironic is that the story itself and the way that it's told and the order in which you go through the chapters is anything but linear. That's what kills me. This thing suffers from the Man of Steel syndrome in that it completely overuses the flashback formula. I mean, the flashbacks in here are told in such random order, and in such unpredictable fashions that half the time I couldn't even get. Actually, I could not get invested in the story, period, because half the time I was just confused about, like, okay, when does this take place? When, like, oh, okay, she's this age now, because the game, I'm not kidding here, starts with her as a little girl, then it goes to her as an adult, then it goes to her as a teenager, back to a little girl, then to a teenager again, then back to an adult, back to a teenager, back to a little girl. There's no consistency here. It jumps around so much that it is impossible for you to connect with the main character. It's really kind of frustrating, the fact that the game never actually lets you get emotionally invested in the main character. The closest thing I actually came to getting emotionally invested in one of the characters in this was Willem Dafoe, and I'll get to him in a second. But the thing is, another thing that prevents you from really getting sucked in by the story is the fact that the acting is not very good. At all. I mean, Ellen Page, I'm not an Ellen Page fan, but I like to think that I'm a big enough person to say that when an actor or actress that I don't like gives a good performance, I can acknowledge it. I hate Logan Lerman as an actor, but at the same time, when I saw him in Perks of Being a Wallflower, I was genuinely blown away by how emotionally involved I was in his character, and a large part of that had to do with his very, very good performance. I mean, I was shocked how good he was in Perks of Being a Wallflower. But at the same time, I hate him in everything else. So when I say that Ellen Page sucks in this game, I'm not just saying that because I don't like Ellen Page. She has two modes in this. Two. One is crying hysterically about God knows what. She cries at every single instance of Aiden saving her. I mean, there are so many times when you have to save her as Aiden. It actually gets really repetitive now that I think about it. But yeah, one of her two modes is crying, and the other mode is this very irritating, Kristen Stewart type acting where she's just mumbling. She mumbles so many times in this. She mumbles, she stutters, she kind of half whispers. It gets really annoying how subdued and understated she is. You can have actors giving really subtle performances, and them still be very good performances. Like Kevin Costner is very good at that. Russell Crowe, I found, is very good at that. So I'm not going to bash on her for trying to give a subtle performance here, but this is just going way too far. this, I mean, she never raises her voice except to cry, or to scream, and this actually contributed to my confusion as to what section of her life that we were in, because like I said, this game jumps around, but but two other reasons I was confused is because A, her performance is basically the same throughout the entire game. I mean, she acts the same way as an adult as she does as a teenager, for the most part. Um, I mean, as a teenager, you'll occasionally get her cliched, whiny, angsty teenage tantrums, but for the most part, her performance is fairly consistent throughout the entire game. I mean, she's a rebellious teenager in the research facility. She's an outcast. She's a soldier. All of these performances are just kind of blend into one. There is little to no differentiation between areas of her life in terms of personality, and in terms of her behavior. And another reason I got confused, and this I realize this kind of borders on nitpicking, or just kind of picking on an actress for how she looks. But Ellen Page is one of those actors that does not age, or has not aged for a long time. So when you're seeing her as a teenager, the only reference I have is the timeline, which has no dates on it. So and only has very vague titles for each of the chapters. So the timeline cannot be relied upon, in my opinion. Um, and the other reference I have is the people that she surrounds herself with. One of the only reasons I knew that she was a teenager was because she was being dropped off at a birthday party with a bunch of other surly idiot teenagers who are straight out of a Stephen King novel with how cold-hearted and two-dimensional they were. Um, uh, and the only reason I knew she was an adult is because she was being surrounded by these really intense adult figures, and put into these really intense adult situations, like when she goes on this covert ops mission, and when she's in the military camp. So, but one aspect of her that did not help me at all in determining her age was the way her face looks. She looks the same through large portions of this game. The only time where she looks any different is when they actually got a different actress to play her when she was a kid, because yeah, 5 to 10-year-old kid, you can clearly tell that it's not Ellen Page playing the kid. It's a child actress, even though they kind of stick Ellen Page's face onto the child actress when they were mocapping her. But all the rest of the time, she looks the same. She looks the same. I feel horrible for saying that, but she looks and acts the same throughout the entire game, and when you don't like the way that she looks and acts, you got a problem. You've actually got several problems. And coming back to Willem Dafoe is actually my favorite character in the game. Although I was kind of questioning one aspect of the story in regards to him early on, because basically what it is that Willem Dafoe plays this doctor guy who basically takes Ellen Page under his wing. He realizes Ellen Page has this gift. He realizes that she can never really be integrated into normal society, so he basically takes her under his wing. He becomes like a father figure. And me, I'm just thinking to myself, how traumatized do you have to be looked after by someone as scary looking as Willem Dafoe? And I love Willem Dafoe, but he is a scary looking guy. So oh my god. But he actually plays my favorite character, oddly enough. He plays the character that actually goes through some kind of visible growth. that's that's very understandable. It's very tragic. Um, Toward the end, it kind of descends into this kind of cliched crazy man persona. But up until that point, I was more invested in the few scenes that we had with Willem Dafoe and his backstory than I was in any of the crap with Ellen Page. Because spoilers here, um, Willem Dafoe Willem Dafoe basically loses his wife and daughter part way through looking after Ellen Page. I mean when he's during one of their sessions, he gets a call and says and he basically says, "Oh, my wife and daughter just got killed when a truck hit their car." Um, and basically from that point on, possibly before that point, but from that point on, he actually has an alternate agenda for sticking with Ellen Page for so long. I mean he obviously cares about her, um, but but he sees Aiden and Ellen Page and their kind of a symbiotic relationship as being a pathway to the next world, a path, and by extension, a means to get his wife and daughter back. And he eventually becomes kind of consumed by this. That's actually really interesting. And believe it or not, I actually liked a lot of the scenes between him and Ellen Page because they really seemed very genuine. Um, both parties seemed very conflicted, and and it actually manages to almost be the emotional core of the game, if the rest of the game was worth anything. But but um but who else is in this game? The characters, there are really only two main characters. There's Ellen Page's character, and then there's Willem Dafoe's character. Um, I mean, the only other two significant figures I can think of that really stand out in any way are this other doctor guy, or doctor's assistant guy, whatever, who looks like Paul Winfield and who kind of helps out Willem Dafoe, in and kind of becomes this second surrogate father to her. He doesn't really have his own agenda or anything. He actually really does deeply care about Ellen Page, not in any kind of romantic sense, but just as but just as a guardian would care for someone they've taken under their wing. So he was really likable. I ended up really liking his character, even though he seemed kind of weird at the beginning, like, "Oh, hey, princess, how are you doing?" But the second person in the game that really kind of stands out is this CIA agent named Ryan, who the game tries to push him as the love interest. Um, like he actually becomes the subject of one of the few legitimate choices you have, and that's at the end of the game where you're choosing the ending. But the game really wants you to pick this guy. The game gives you several opportunities to pick this guy as the love interest for Ellen Page. But the thing is earlier on in the game, that covert ops mission that I mentioned, Ellen Page has to assassinate this I think Middle Eastern president, but she's kind of fed false information by Ryan. When he says this guy is an evil dictator that needs to be taken out. It turns out this guy was a democratically elected president who was basically trying to lead a revolution for his people. So upon learning that, Ellen Page and the player become very hostile towards Ryan. She's like, "You lie, blah 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 blah," and she basically and then she's kind of subsequently hunted on the grounds of being a deserter. I mean, she outright jumps out of the plane that she and Ryan are on upon learning that information. So excuse me, when I'm not exactly completely on board for embracing this guy as the love interest, when he basically had me kill several innocent people and kill the father of a little kid in what can only be interpreted as an unprovoked attack, because upon learning this information, the game actually never gives you any reason to hate this president guy. The game never, or at least not that I can recall. Maybe I missed something, but the game actually never gives you any reason, any legitimate reason for assassinating this guy. I mean, what did he do to deserve the death sentence by the CIA? I mean, I was legitimately confused about that. But one final thing I want to get to is this game has a serious case of uncanny valley. This game has a serious case of mistaken priorities when it comes to being a cinematic experience. I mean, there are several points in this game where I was freaked out by the lifeless puppets I was seeing on the screen, because you'll have someone like Ellen Page or Willem Dafoe who they worked very hard in creating every excruciating detail of their facial movements. I mean, Ellen Page and Willem Dafoe almost look real. Just in how they move and everything. I mean, they look. But then you'll have one of the more minor characters like this really kind of this jerky general guy who shows up much later in the game who looks horrible. He looks like he came out of a PS2 game or a very early, like, 2007 PS3 game. I mean, he looks terrible, and he's not the only one either. I mean, there are several other let's say NPC character models, AI character models that lack any texture. There are several places in this movie that lack texture, and I was thinking to myself, why invest that level of attention to detail to the facial expressions if you're not going to get anything else looking ship-shape? And granted, there are certain places that look very good. I mean, basically Last of Us level of detail or Arkham City level of detail, like the Middle Eastern place where you basically sneak in and assassinate the president. I mean, that place looks pretty good. But then you'll get something like another place that actually made me go, wow, that looks fantastic, is the desert in the Navajo section. So that looked really good. I was actually surprised at how much I liked that location. But then there would be places like this suburban neighborhood with all this snow, and the inside of this house that just look. I don't even know how to describe it other than lacking texture. It just looks very artificial. It looks really unsettling how just eerily fake everything looks. And that also kind of contributes to what I said earlier about the uncanny valley. When I say this game has a case of uncanny valley, I'm mainly referring to the very realistic movements of Ellen Page and Willem Dafoe, combined with the realistic body movements, not facial movements, the body movements of other characters in the game. that somehow feel very, I hate to use this word again, but feel very artificial. They feel very deliberately created by a machine. They feel very lifeless, very soulless. Um, they honestly kind of look like the Polar Express characters at a lot of points where I was just kind of I was almost cringing at how sometimes they could get these very human looking movements and these very human looking textures, but at the same time not really not really be able to duplicate the human the human spirit or the human spark. It's a little hard to explain, um, but I really think you just have to watch some of the cutscenes to really see where I'm coming from on this, because there's when I look at the characters in this game, I don't really see any life behind the faces. I don't really see any. I mean, I see an attempt. I see an attempt at life. I see an artificial life, but I don't really see any character life. Maybe that has to do with the fact that I don't like any of the characters, but I don't think so. I was legitimately creeped out by some of the rendering in this. Um, and one of the many contributing factors to that maybe the fact that the hair in this game looks awful. I mean, the hair does not move. The hair does not move at all. I mean, except for maybe a few times. I mean, the hair is always in this very fixed position. There's, I mean, it looks very painted on, and like one of the more noticeable examples actually includes Ellen Page's foster mom in the game. This I think her name is Susan or something. I mean, there's a point where she's bending down and you see the back of her head in all its glory, and her hair looks so bad. It looks so horribly rendered. I was just like, okay, there's where the money ran out, right there on the hair. But yeah, I was not happy with this game. I I mean, it's extraordinarily linear. The characters are not very likable. The story is not very investing at all. Um, in addition to being told in this very convoluted, disjointed manner, um, and the whole bleak atmosphere they're going for, a lot of the times feels out of place. A lot of the times, Ellen Page will just be do Ellen Page or some other character will just be doing something completely normal, and the game will be trying to set this bleak tone or this very somber tone, and honestly, it kind of feels out of place at times. I don't think I don't think the I don't think it needs to be. I don't think making dinner for Ryan when he's coming over for a date needs the really sad music going on. Um, man, man, I honestly think this game is more than anything is going to go down as a failed experiment, and like always, I'm not trying to alienate anyone who may like this game. I can, I mean, to some extent, I can see some people really, really getting into this game. I can see, I mean, I can certainly see why a lot of the reviews are on opposite ends of the spectrum. I mean, it just didn't do anything for me. I I really did not enjoy playing this game. I mean, eventually after a while, it just became a colossal chore for me anyway. I mean, after a while, I was just waiting for it to be over, and I desperately wanted to stop. I desperately wanted to turn the game off and go like, you know what, I'm done with this. But but it just became maybe it became a matter of my ego. Maybe it became just my male, maybe just my male refusal to let this game beat me. I I don't know. Um, but I played the game all the way through. Um, and yeah, it's like I said. I don't think this game is gonna be held in nearly as high of esteem as Heavy Rain. I definitely don't think it's gonna go down as one of the year's best. Um, I can think of several games this year that I enjoyed far more than this. That I would actually rather be playing than this. There are games from the PS1 era that I would rather be playing than this. But now I'm just kind of going off on another tangent. I'll wrap this up. Um, like I said, the characters are very uninvesting, except for a few. I mean, like I said, I really got into Willem Dafoe's character. I really liked the Paul Winfield assistant guy. Um, Cole, that was his name. I really liked him. I really liked the homeless people that she comes across when she deserts the army. Um, I mean, these homeless people. I want a whole game based on these homeless people because they were actually really interesting. I mean, there was a real sense of camaraderie there, and I wanted to stay with these homeless people. When they dropped out of the game, I was like, oh, come back. But yeah, the acting is very hit or miss. Um, I mean, when a lot of the time when a supporting or not a supporting when a bit part character or a very minor character shows up, they're they don't really feel they feel like they are just there to pad the game out. And that's another issue with the game. The game feels very padded. It feels like there's a lot of filler here. And that's, I think, one of the issues with setting this game over a 15-year time span. They wanted to include as many aspects of her life as possible. But the thing is, there are aspects of her life that I could have done without, that don't really contribute a whole lot. Like the whole birthday party thing where the kids are like, oh yeah, her dress is from it's completely out of date. Why would you bring me this really rare Edgar Allan Poe book? I thought that was completely unnecessary, completely out of left field when the kids turned on her. And that was a scene I honestly think should have been cut or at least preserved for DLC. Um, but yeah, the story is very convoluted. The plot actually gets really stupid. It actually gets way more over the top and cartoonish than you would have expected. Um, with all the evil spirits coming out of the what did they say, the convergence, coming out of the evil portal that you have to shut down. It gets downright cartoonish. It gets Ghostbusters. I mean, it gets to Ghostbusters level hilarity, unintentional hilarity. Except Ghostbusters was intentional hilarity. So I honestly think that's tarnishing the name of the Ghostbusters. Play the Ghostbusters game. Play the 2009 Ghostbusters game. That game is better. Um, so yeah, that's all I got for this. I mean, this is a colossal disappointment in my opinion. There is very little investment here to hold your attention. There is very little. I mean, I this is one of the most uninvolving games I've played in a while. I cannot believe how little impact you have on the story. I cannot believe you can very nearly play this game without even picking up the controller. It's yeah, that's my 2 cents.